I think, we grow up our whole lives with like our identities, and people saying this is who you are, this is who they are, you know what I mean? This is what you need to achieve, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to be. And I really think if my disease could boil down to one thing, it would be that. It would be the fact that I felt like I had to be this person or live up to some sort of standard, but the whole point is that it's all made up and it's all in my head, and the truth is that a lot of it is embedded in society, and it's everything that we learn, you know what I mean? So I can't blame myself for having these ideas, like I remember when I first went into a rehab center and they did this exercise where they put on the board like the difference between being that everything's a spectrum. There's a spectrum between being a man and a woman, there's a spectrum between being gay and straight, there's a spectrum between being sick and recovered, and they were like, okay, put your where you are on that spectrum. And I remember it being like a really powerful exercise for me because I was just coming from like a college experience where everybody was in a sorority, and I like didn't feel girly enough, and I felt like, I kind of like maybe I look like a sorority girl in some type of way, so like maybe I should be a sorority girl, but I really just want to be like, on the bluffs, like smoking weed with the stoners, and I want to be like hanging out with the kids who do too much drugs because that's just where I feel like I fit and I belong, but I had all this like pressure and like this weird sense of like, I'm not okay how I am. I should be different, and I even was thinking about that today. Like it came across my mind because this is the struggle, you know what I mean? For me, at least, it's just accepting myself for exactly who I am and not feeling like I should be different in any way. So just to tell you a bit about like my story, it's basically, I was born into this world, and I heard someone say that like, we're all born and nobody really tells you how to live life, how to process emotions, you know what I mean? You're just born, and then it's just like, all right, go ahead, and we start to look around at the other people in our lives and how they conduct themselves. And then I start to form beliefs about myself, about the world around me, how I should act. Everything was about me, anything somebody said, anything somebody did, it meant something about me and my character and how I fit into this world. And I don't know about you guys, but I cannot live that way. It's like giving me anxiety even thinking about it, because the truth is I don't live that way anymore, but it's taken a lot of work. But yeah, I played a lot of sports in high school, and that definitely kept me out of trouble. And it also gave me a sense of identity. It gave me something to feel good about myself for, It's like if I'm not doing something or showing my worth in some type of way, like I need to get those like brownie points in order to be good enough. I need you to tell me I'm good enough. That was my biggest thing, It's like I need validation, external validation. That was just my lifeline. I couldn't live without it, and I sought it in everything I did. And then I judged myself for seeking that validation. I don't know if anybody relates to that. But yeah, I just kind of looked around at everyone around me, and I felt like they were all just kind of like doing life, and I was always just internally struggling. I basically, the way I put it is that I was my own worst enemy, not my own best friend. And I know people who are their own best friends, and I don't relate to them, I mean, like, now I do, which is really cheesy and corny, and it's like, even, it's so weird that that's my experience now, because for a long time it wasn't. But like my sister and my brother, they grew up in the same household, they had the same upbringing, but they handled life differently than I did. They reacted to life differently, they attached meaning differently, and it's just so funny because that's just not how my brain works. I wouldn't like see somebody do something bad. And they talk about it in the big book. They talk about those ominous warnings that I failed to heed. It's like how many times I've heard about people getting in car accidents and dying, or hurt. Like my mom sent me this letter she wrote to me about like accepting yourself and loving yourself, and you're exactly who you're meant to be. And I literally flashback, I remember reading it, but the extent to which I was not able to take in that information was insane. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's right in front of your face. All the answers are right in front of your face the entire time, but like I can't see it until I see it. And that's really what happened for me. Like I had to, what's the quote I wrote down today? It was basically like, until I couldn't go on anymore. Like, it's unbelievable the pain that I lived with. But the thing is that that's what it takes. That's what it took for me. So it's like, if you're miserable right now, if you hate yourself right now, if you can't stand being in your skin, if every moment is an absolute struggle, I'm kind of happy for you in a weird way, because I think that as much as, like, obviously you don't want, like, for example, like when I have kids, it's like I don't want my kids to go through tremendous pain, but I also kind of know that the dopest people that I know have been through a tremendous amount of pain and have become like a grounded, loving, compassionate human being because of it. So it's like, if I can start to change some of those things, and rather than looking at my experience of, because I struggle, because I have alcoholism, because I hate myself and I'm self-centered, all this stuff, like, oh, poor me, like, why am I like this? It's like, okay, I can start to look at it a different way, which is what I did, and see that, because I struggle with those things, I basically have to seek a spiritual experience in order to survive. And I know that might sound a little bit weird to some people, but I kind of thought about how I want to share about what a spiritual experience is for me. And it's, like I said, in AA, it's so cool because nobody tells you what to think, what to believe, and I know we all come from different influences, and it ties back to what I was saying in the beginning about how everything's just like the story that society's telling us. But what happens when I get sober is I get to start to, like, really look at things for the first time and be like, wait, what do I think about that? What do I believe about that, And I remember having these kind of beliefs in the beginning, like, well, how could I believe in God if there are starving people, How could I believe in God if people, 8-year-olds are dying of cancer? It didn't make sense to me how I could, like, believe in this God when all these mess up things were happening, But it's just like, I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm just saying that what I had to do is, like, re-explore that and redefine that, and not see it as so much of, that story that's been told. And for me, it's about experiencing myself. It says in the big book that, like, so it says that literally the purpose of the book is to enable us to have a spiritual awakening. So the steps are outlined in such a way that it kind of guides us back to who we are, like that little kid who I was when I was really little, and I didn't care about what anybody thought, and I was just living, and I, like, seen kids, like, explore of, like, this, like, it's like the coolest thing they've ever seen, you know what I mean? They're just like, what is that? Like, that's literally the curiosity and, like, the craziness that I've brought back into my life. It's like, I don't need drugs, honestly, you guys. I do not need drugs. I don't need alcohol. Like, I trip out on life because the truth is that this is crazy. Literally, like, the fact that we exist, it's like, that didn't need to happen. You know what I mean? And the whole thing is that I've lived my whole life, like only on one plane of, like, Earth, Do you know, I didn't know this, so no judgment, how small the Earth is? It's literally like the sun is the size of 1 million Earths, okay? And we're in one galaxy, and there are trillions of galaxies out there. So if I can pull my head out of my butt for a second and just be like, what's actually going on here? Like, what is this? What is this plant? Like, and more importantly, it's like, what am I? You know what I mean? Like, I walk around and I'm just like, I'm Niki from Boston, and these are my good qualities and these are my bad qualities. It's like, that's so lame. Like, I need to redefine who I am, at least for me, because that for me is living my ego. Your ego, my definition that I like is, it's a false sense of self. I'm literally walking around with a false sense of self. Who I think I am is, separate from all that exists. I'm just like this separate little entity, but it's like, how could I be separate? How could I be separate? I literally popped into this earth. Like, I didn't ask to be here. You know what I'm saying? I didn't sign up, but, like, I just popped out as some other human being and just had a life. It's like, I take so much ownership and so much credit, and I put so much, meaning on things, that I strip it of its beauty, and I strip it of like the magic that this all is. And it makes sense, you know, because we're living in a society and we need to make money, and they need to tell you that you need to be more like this, so you buy things, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that to fuel your hatred for society, because I've definitely been there where I was like, I'm just gonna like abandon society and live in a, you know, a hut somewhere and just like gaze into the universe. Like, I went through that, you know, but my spiritual journey has really like evolved over time. And what it really becomes now, and what I've seen like spiritual maturity as, is like really just accepting things how they are, you know, not needing to change it, and realizing that it all serves a purpose. For example, if I didn't have the craziest amount of darkness inside of me, and literally like my ego is insane, like absolutely insane. It makes me want to think that I'm the most special, most amazing, most perfect person in the entire world, and I need everyone to validate me. That's, you know, and I don't judge myself for it. I used to judge myself for it, but the truth is I'm not choosing that. I'm really not. It's my experience. And the way one of my favorite philosophers helped me like come to realize it, and something that I heard recently, was that like he explained that your inner world and the outer world are all just a happening. Like, they're happening, you know? So it's like, I know that might sound kind of crazy, but what I mean is that if I can take it so that like my emotions, the way that I feel, the way that I think, if I can stop clinging to it and identifying who I am with all of that, like, oh, I'm bad because I think this, or I'm like this, you know what I mean? Like, I attach it to who I am. If I can kind of like step back and look at it and be like, okay, that's that emotion. What's that coming from? You know, what do I need to look into around that? And it becomes like the most amazing thing, and it becomes, most importantly, freeing. And I know this might all sound like it has nothing to do with alcoholism, which I'm going to tie that all in, but it's like, for me, that's what being sober is about. It's way more than not drinking and not using. The fact is that I do have this allergy to drugs and alcohol, and the obsession of the mind, and the spiritual malady, like, you know. So if you're new, I encourage you to find somebody who knows the book and who will read it for you, with you, line by line, because it really is an experience. It's one alcoholic working with another. It's somebody looking you in the face and being like, I did those same things. And it's so powerful, because the whole point is like, I mean, I just felt judged for so long, and I felt like such a terrible person, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why do I act like this? You know? And when I came to AA and I read that book, and I found out that, and I came to meetings and I found out that there are other people who do those same things, I mean, I just got so much compassion for myself, because I'm understanding that this is a disease, you guys. I'm not choosing it. Why would anybody choose to be their own worst enemy? Why would anybody choose to harm themselves? It's literally like that analogy in the big book, that I'm hitting myself with the hammer in the face. Why would I be doing that? Clearly there's something going on. And the thing is, I'm not stupid, you know? So if I tell myself, like, I'm not going to do this tomorrow, and then I wake up in the morning and I have a craving beyond my control, and my mind just says, oh yeah, bitch, we are going to go do that. And I'm like, okay, for sure. Like, that's how it goes. That's how my disease works. It's that powerful. It had me in its grips. And towards the end of it, like, the voice in my head was so loud that it was just unbelievable. I mean, the thing is like, I feel lucky, because drugs, alcohol, you know, whatever, all of that, like, wasn't really, I knew that wasn't my problem, because I knew I was my problem, because I was just really messed up. Like, my mind was really messed up, and I had a really bad eating disorder, so that was another way that my spirituality manifested itself. You know, it's like, I clearly just didn't love myself, and I knew I didn't love myself, because I'm like depriving myself of food, or just like doing, you know, binging, purging, like hateful things. So, you know, and I share that because I know that there are other people who struggle with that. And for me, it comes down to the same brokenness. It comes down to the same, what they call spiritual malady, which for me, what I found out, which meant that I'm disconnected from my spirit. And what I found out is that, you know, that maybe that we're spiritual beings, and this is just my opinion, that we're spiritual beings having an experience in a physical world, which means that, like, what I'm saying is that I'm not my body. I'm not a physical being. Like, yes, I have a body, but the phrase I have a body says it all. I have a body. I am not my body, right? And my body grows and changes over time, and it's gonna grow and change, but the part of me that stays the same deep within me, that is what I refer to as my spirit. And that's the part of me that I was so disconnected from. Like, my friends in high school used to meditate and stuff, and I'd be like, what the hell are you guys doing? I was so cut off, and my identity was so wrapped up in what I looked like and all of that physical, material things, and especially what other people thought of me. My identity was definitely what I thought other people thought of me, which doesn't make sense because I'm mind reading now. Do you see what I'm saying? I now think I know what everybody else thinks of me. So these are the ways that I found that I was just completely, I was living in a morphed sense of reality. And I'm saying this in retrospect, right? So it's like, this journey for me is about just looking at myself honestly and being like, what is actually going on here? What do I believe about myself? What do I think about myself and the world around me? And like, that's what the steps are for. They're there to kind of like, just do some digging. And I mean, I'll be honest and say, like, I had a spiritual awakening before I even did the steps. So I tell that to people too who just want to cling on to the steps, or cling on to the book. Like, it's like, then all of a sudden that's like, the thing for me. And then all of a sudden I'm spiritually sick again and I don't know why. You know what I mean? It's because the thing is it's nothing outside of me. Everything that the book says and every spiritual text says is that literally, like, it's for me to experience. I am it. It's within me. It's my experience. Like the fact that I just kind of work with the fact that, like, I am a human being. I have an ego. I can't escape that. You know what I mean? I have an ego, and my ego does, like, it makes you want to survive, right? It's like, it's there for a reason. But what the steps are here for, and why I think it's so crazy that we as alcoholics, we just so happen to have a disease that makes it so that I cannot live in my ego. Like, genuinely cannot. Like, as soon as I start caring about what I look like and material things, and like start trying to control everybody and change the future, as soon as that happens and I'm in that kind of like thing, I'm liable to drink and use again, and if I drink and use, I have this physical allergy where I might die. So in order for me to save my life and just be a happy, healthy, functioning human, I can't live in my ego. I can't. And I share that because, like, that's for me the crux of it. It says in the big book that the root of our troubles is self-centeredness. I need to ask myself what that means. What does it mean to be self-centered? Am I thinking about myself all day? And I know it might be hard for some people, because it was really hard for me in the beginning, because I was like, I'm not self-centered, I hate myself. And it's like, that's self-centeredness. Plain and simple, I'm thinking of myself. The way I like to describe it to people is that, like, it's almost like, with an iPhone, if I have the camera face towards myself and I'm walking around all day with the camera face towards myself, am I living that way, or am I turning the camera out and seeing, like, what's actually out there? And it's pretty great, But the thing is it says in the book as well that I can't will my way out of self-centeredness. I can't just be like, okay, now I understand I'm self-centered. I shouldn't be self-centered anymore. And, I'm just going to stop doing that. Like, that's just not my experience. And in the book, it says we can't will our way out. So that's why this whole higher power thing comes into play, is because as a human being, and by myself, meaning me trying to use my power to change myself, is never going to work. It doesn't for me. I know plenty of people who live their life off willpower, and they're just like, eat healthy and go to the gym, and you know what I mean? Like, they just have all this willpower, and I don't get that. I don't relate with that. I need to have like, my boyfriend and I laugh about it because he, like, meditates, and he eats so healthy, and he's just always loved himself, and he treats himself so well, and he doesn't understand. It's like, if I'm having a bad day, or I'm like in self and I'm like whatever, he's like, oh, just meditate. And like, yes, I can meditate, but also I'm like, you don't understand, like I literally need to like have a spiritual experience and like change my perspective of the world in order to like get back on the right path, you know? Like I can't, it has to come from a power greater than me. That's what I'm saying. And I gave this analogy the other day, but it's I kind of like it. It's, even though it's whatever, but it's kind of like a lamp that needs to plug into the wall. You know, if I'm not plugged into the wall, I'm not lit up, right? I need to plug into something greater than me, and then my light, I literally light up. Like when I'm connected to a power greater than me, like I'm actually lit up. Like my spirit is lit up, and I'm able to like, it just feels good. And the thing is like, I can't do it because it feels good. That's the other thing, you know. It's like this spiritual journey is like, as soon as I get a little glimpse of peace, inner peace, and I'm like, ooh, I like that, you know, it feels good, and it's what I've wanted my whole life. And then, you know, my ego comes into it, and it's like, oh, we need more of that, you know, do that again. And it's like, then I can start to try to use spirituality to like just feel good all the time. And I'm just kind of talking about things I've experienced. It's like I constantly want to feel good. I don't know if anybody relates with me on that. Of course, we want to feel good, you know? So for me, it's all about awareness. It's about knowing this about myself. And when I did the steps and I read the book and I found out, you know, not only do I have this physical allergy, mental obsession, spirituality, but it's like they talk about things like delusion, that I can be delusional. They talk about self-centeredness, right? They talk about like just all of those things that kind of plague you in your life. Like, you know, it's like anything that kind of comes up during your day and how I'm going to deal with that, you know? Wow, I really went through that fast. That's crazy. 10 minutes left. But yeah, I feel like I didn't really give you guys an image of what I used to be like, but the fact is that I'm literally like, I wish there was more than a 180. It's not a 360 because I'd be back at the start. But you know what I mean? Like, I did a 180, but I feel like that doesn't even capture it. Like, I was the most insecure, like, just, I didn't value myself at all. Just, really just did some, like, you know, incomprehensible demoralization, right? Like, really, really bad, because I didn't value myself. And I didn't love myself. And also on top of that, I was a sick person. And I also have these, I want to say tendencies or things like that, right? Like, I have like a tendency to kind of like need something. You know, if anybody relates with that, you kind of just like need something. Oh, I need coffee, I need gum, I need, you know what I mean? And it's like, I have to just, for me, I had to learn to kind of like accept myself, like, okay, that's the situation, and I need to stop judging myself. You know what I mean? And that there is a way out. And like, the cool thing is that like this disease, there are many diseases that you have that don't have a cure to it, you know? And the crazy thing is that this is a disease that not only there's a cure to it, but you actually get catapulted into like the fourth dimension of existence. And it's amazing. Literally, I'm not kidding you. Like, and it's all because of my pain. It's all because of my darkness. And I'm not kidding you guys. I told you I trip out on life. Like, it's crazy because I've learned to, like, for me, the spiritual experiences, it's a new sense of identity. I'm no longer this, like, identity that I created in my mind. Like, I'm just a little piece of, like, God, whatever you want to call it. I'm just a little piece of that that's just having an experience on earth. You know, and when I see myself that way, I see everybody else that way too. And I look out, and when I know I'm always doing my best, no matter what, with the pain that I have and with the knowledge that I have and the growth that I have, like I'm always doing the best I can, you know. So if yesterday, you know, I messed up in some type of way, I don't need to be down on myself. I get to just be like, okay, like that's the best I could do then, and I'm gonna learn from it and I'm gonna move forward. And that's how it goes. And now I not only see myself that way, like I said, I get to see everybody else that way. So if somebody's like an asshole to me while like I'm driving or something, I don't have to get all like torn up about it and take it personally. It's like, you know, that kind of sucks for that person that they're acting like that. You know, as weird as that sounds, like it's when I talk badly about other people, when I steal things, when I gossip, when I cheat on somebody. You know what I mean? If I do anything like that, the person that I'm really hurting is myself. You see what I mean? So yeah, you're hurting some other people, but it's like I'm really I'm really hurting myself. And that's what it comes down to. So I get to see that for other people too. If like they're kind of a jerk to me, I'm like, they must not really, have that love within yet, which is fine. There's no judgment. It's just kind of like, okay. But for me, you guys, that's what this whole thing is about. It's like, I didn't really talk that much about drugs and alcohol, but the thing is that because of the book and because I did the steps and read and found out what alcoholism actually is, because before I thought it was just like homeless people with a brown paper bag. And now I know that it's not about how often I drank or when I drank or what I drank. It's about what happens to me when I drink. And the truth is that as soon as I take one drink, I have absolutely no control and no idea what's going to happen next. And I know that for a fact. And I somehow was able to come to that truth when I was 18 years old, and I have 4 years of sobriety, and it's pretty amazing. And I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything at all. I really do not. If anything, I'm so unbelievably grateful that this program has made me do work on myself that people don't do until they're in their deathbed. And I get to experience life in like the craziest way. Like I actually have my ears open, and I get to be present. That's really what it is. It's like I heard this study the other day that like I think they said that like 70 or it's not the right amount, but 70% of the time people's minds are wandering. Okay? And I'm just saying, if I'm living in this little fairy tale land in my head, which is fine, could be nice stories, could be bad stories, the whole point is that I'm literally in the universe experiencing life somehow in this body, that everything just kind of works and makes it happen, and I'm just breathing in air, and like all the ingredients for life are just here on planet Earth. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? And I'm missing out on how amazing it is to be alive when I'm telling myself stories about, you all know what you tell yourself stories about. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, like I said, it's hard work, but I'll tell you that this last couple things is that the way what I contribute most of my change to is absolutely, it's doing the steps, but like for me, it's more that they call this spiritual kindergarten, and I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's just literally what Bill called it. He said it's spiritual kindergarten. It's good. It's a good start. But what other spiritual books are you reading? Don't even use the word spiritual. Like it's there's no label on it. Just what are you reading that's feeding your soul? It's like your soul is like a garden, and you have to water it. What are you doing that's feeding you and helping you grow? You have to grow your mind, right? It's like, and the biggest thing for me is about reforming and completely transforming, I can't think of the word, my mind, reprogramming my mind, actually. Before, it would be like, I'd see this, and I'd think this, and then I'd feel that, right? Like, over and over and over, like, oh, I see a pretty girl, and then I feel insecure, you know what I mean? It's like these thought patterns that are engraved in my head. And of course, if I'm thinking that way, my experience is going to suck, and then I'm going to want to escape it, and then I'm going to want to pick up drugs and alcohol, because of course I want to feel better than I do. So if I'm going to stay sober, I need to completely reshape my inner world and make it one that is enjoyable and that I don't need relief from. Like, I don't drink coffee, I don't smoke cigarettes, like, and I'm just telling you this because it's possible. I don't do any of that stuff, and the way that I don't is not because I have willpower, it's because I've learned to love myself through having a spiritual awakening and realizing that literally I am just the universe, like, experiencing itself. Like, I know that sounds weird, but I'm just going to say it because maybe somebody knows what I'm talking about. But, it might sound weird, but that's the whole thing, is that it could be a part of me I haven't explored yet, or a part of the just reality I haven't explored yet. And I highly recommend, it's like, for me, I contribute most of my growth to like having a journal and writing down what my thoughts are saying to me. And then I realize that I'm not my thoughts, I'm the one listening. I have to stop attributing who I am to those thoughts, you know, or attaching who I am to all these things that I'm just the experiencer, right? And if I can start to make that separation, I no longer have to have shame or feel like I'm a bad person. You know what I mean? And everything that I've gone through in my past, after I do the work to kind of dig through that pain and understand it better, then on the other side of pain is so much freedom. So I really hope that if you have some of that pain to get through, I really hope you do it, you know, and it's painful. I remember being in a therapy session and I almost leapt across the table and strangled the woman across from me because she asked me a question I didn't want to hear. She asked if, like, my stepmom loved me like a daughter or something. I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, vulnerable questions. Like, don't ask her that because it's vulnerable for me and that hurts. Like, I've heard that emotional pain is even more painful than physical pain, you know? And that's why everybody spends their entire life running from it. That's about it.
That's right.